The bottom line is, the accountant said, you have by way of disposable assets some £3.5 million. Immediate. Silence fell in the room. Beyond the library windows, Eric Ward could see the slope of the meadows down towards the river, and beyond, the rising hills towards the Cheviot. It was mid-morning, and the sun was bright and hard, glinting on the river. A flock of seagulls wheeled above the ploughed fields across the meadow, 30 miles inland, black against the sunlight. Anne's eyes were upon him. He looked at her expressionlessly. There was a vague shadow in her glance, an indeterminate anxiety, but he could not help her. He had listened while the accountant had explained things to her. Under the terms of your father's will, as I understand it, certain properties and investments were not to fall in under your control until February of this year. You issued instructions regarding the properties and the investments. We would now advise you should be looked at again. The net result, as far as your estate is concerned, is that you have available to you a considerable cash flow, a net asset, a realizable asset of some significance. Over £3 million worth of significance. Eric's skin felt cool. The young lawyer who worked for Anne, Mark Fenham, was drumming his fingers lightly on the table. Eric was aware the man had had several consultations with the accountants. Anne had asked for a report to be made. This morning was the result. She had asked him to be present in the library when the discussion was started. He was not certain why she had made the specific request. Or maybe he did know, but was not prepared to admit it to himself. Anne was handling the manila folder the accountant had given her as though she expected it to contain a bomb. She was nervous, not so much that the other two men in the room would notice, but enough for Eric to realize that she was suffering from a degree of tension, probably induced by his own presence, or maybe by his silence. "You've made various proposals in these papers," she said. The accountant was called Hoskins. He was about 30 years of age and had not lost the enthusiasm of a young man asked to spend other people's money. His bright blue eyes were gleaming as he leaned forward, long freckled fingers interlaced urgently as he spoke. "Your father, his lordship, has already left you in Morecambe Estates a fairly wide range of investments in land, timber, and property. I've checked, and these investments, and they are, of course, long-term, some of the farms are perhaps not satisfactory performers." He paused, cast an uncertain glance in the direction of Mark Fenham, and hurried on. "I am advised, on the other hand, that certain social obligations would prevent you disposing of those assets. So, in general, the portfolio presently held by Morecambe Estates is a sound one, and we would recommend only minimal changes, at the fringes, perhaps." "But this is all separate from the assets you're now talking about?" Anne asked, avoiding Eric's eye. "True. The remainder that comes to you under your father's will is the result of overseas investments that were subject to time constraints. These can now be called in, should be called in, and added to your estate. But not as part of Morecambe Estates? That is, of course, for you to decide, Mrs. Ward. We would advise, however, that if you are to take maximum advantage of tax arrangements, these sums should not be placed under the control of your existing company.